Hey, this is Captain Everyman. I'm here today to bring clarity, insight, and perspective onto Avengers 4. And what I want to look at is Doctor Strange and his plan. And is his plan already working? When we look at the movie, do we see signs that Doctor Strange has already undermined Thanos and that his plan is working? And I think the first thing we ought to look at, and before I get started, there's going to be spoilers here for Ant-Man, the Doctor Strange movie, and Infinity Wars. So if you want to avoid these spoilers, what I'd hope you do is look at those movies and come back and enjoy this. But the thing I want to look at is the nature of time travel and what really happened with Thanos, and another aspect is that whole concept of a time loop and how that works. I know you've probably seen that in other movies and or read about it in books and so on. And if you think back to the Doctor Strange movie and how Doctor Strange defeated the villain in that movie by trapping him in a time loop that he couldn't get out of. So Strange kept coming back, and he actually forced him into negotiating. He didn't have a choice, or he'd be trapped for all eternity in the time loop. So we already know that Doctor Strange understands the dynamics of time, and we don't know how much of a gap there's been between the first Doctor Strange movie and Infinity Wars, but he's had time to even study time and get into the function of the time stone, how to use it even more since then. And even though he'd only had it for a short amount of time then, he was able to think of a way to defeat the villain in that movie. So what I'm going to do is look through Infinity Wars and show you why I believe that his plan was already working then, and how we can look forward to the next Infinity Wars movie, to Avengers 4, and how it's all going to end up. It'll give us some insight into that movie and how it's going to end up. Well, you think about the outcomes, and one of the things you do with time travel is you try to change outcomes, whether it's Back to the Future or any other movie. Really, the protagonist uses time to his advantage there. He usually tries to come up with an outcome that favors him and what he's trying to achieve. Well, the first thing that really jumps out at you in the first movie is that all the Avengers are alive and every member of the Black Order is dead. Now, just think about that for a minute. That is like an incredible outcome to have that would just happen like at random or whatever, but it's a sign that Strange has already manipulated this timeline that we're seeing, that there's something going on here that just reeks of manipulation. Why would they all be alive? And I know to break the fourth wall, you know why they are, but think about it as if we're just viewing it as a story just being written sort of in a neutral way. All of the Avengers are alive at the time that Doctor Strange gives Thanos the Time Stone, and everybody in the Black Order is gone. They're all dead, every single one of them. So why is that important? Because you have to look at the beginning and the ending of a loop in a story that involves time travel or time manipulation, because that's really the key to how things get changed. So if this is really a series of loops where things have already played out in certain ways, but Doctor Strange is manipulating them to come out in a different way, it would make sense that he'd want everybody in the Black Order dead, right? He'd want all Avengers alive, and that's exactly what happens. So another thing we look at is Ant-Man, how they use the traveling to the different realm, and they use that as a way to sort of manipulate what was going on. So you think about the Incredible Hulk, and you think about how there was communication from the quantum realm, and how the quantum realm somehow transcends time. You think about how, if we're talking about a timeline that's set up a certain way, how the Hulk's appearance could have disrupted that. And I'm thinking that, or I believe that the reason the Hulk didn't appear was that him coming, he's kind of a random kind of element anyway, that if keeping the Hulk out of the fray was a way of allowing the timeline to play out in a certain way. And that if he were to show up, it would have disrupted things, and that's why he didn't show. he didn't show it because Doctor Strange had already told him not to appear, not because of anything else. He probably wanted to. But Doctor Strange communicated with the Hulk somehow, and not with Banner, and told him not to come out. And this allowed for events to play out in a way that favored everybody. And again, it led to the Black Order all being dead and for all the Avengers to still be alive at that point in time. And you think about who actually beat that huge Black Order guy and got rid of him. It was Banner and not the Hulk. So if the Hulk had shown up, things may have played out totally differently in a way that didn't favor the timeline we saw. So you think about another thing that really leads to the belief that this is a time loop and Doctor Strange is already involved, is that he makes a conscious effort to change things even in the context of what we're looking at in the now. One of the things he does, he saves Tony Stark, most obviously, before he gives him the stone. So you think about, this is the end of the loop that we're looking at. So we have to look at both sides of it in the beginning and the end to know really what's happening. So he saves Tony Stark, consciously saves him. And that is the thing that's prerequisite for giving up the stone. Now you notice when he gives him the stone is already energized, which is a huge clue. And you think about the fact that Thanos says, hey, this was your most powerful weapon to use against me, and you never used it once. Now you think about that, does that even make sense that Doctor Strange would do that? Obviously not. And what does Strange say when he's talking to Stark about it? He says we're in the Endgame. He compares this to chess. So he's using the time stone to make this like a big chess game where he makes certain moves and he's waiting for Thanos to make different moves. The move that we obviously see is him keeping Stark alive. But you know, in a chess game, there's all kinds of moves, and maybe these other moves, like I'm saying, like the Hulk Knight coming out, are moves that weren't obvious to us now, but maybe in a sort of an M. Night Shyamalan twist, once we see the Avengers 4, we'll look back at Avengers and realize, well, hey, these are moves that he made also. And this whole thing has been something totally different than what we originally thought it was. So here's the key to the whole thing, is that the next movie in Avengers 4, we'll look at it and we'll see when this loop begins and ends. Because it's obvious that giving up the stone was really just part of this loop, this big loop, very, very much like Doctor Strange did in the other movie, where he gave up the stone at a time where he wanted to. Now, what we have to do is see when this loop starts. And the good thing about it is, if this is correct, they'll be able to start the loop in the future when Stark does whatever he's intended or fated to do, and none of these Black Order people will be around to interfere with them. They have a sort of calm now, where the Black Order is not around, Thanos is not active. They'll be able to just sort of work in a sort of like free space where they don't have to worry about fighting anybody off, and they'll be able to set everything up. So looking forward to the next movie, and you'll see that Doctor Strange was already involved in the workings, even in this first Infinity Wars movie, and that this whole thing is a loop that he's set up, and that in fact the end game is over, and he's already defeated Thanos with the Time Stone, and Thanos just doesn't realize it.